program. My name is Shannon Dowd. I am the Manager of Cultural Affairs for the City of Santa Monica. And this event is a really unique partnership within the city. It's kind of co-produced, co-managed by Cultural Affairs, the library, and Woodlawn Cemetery. So it's kind of cross-departmental collaboration to put this event on every year. How many of you have been to one of our Day of the Dead events in the past? Great, that's wonderful. So we're again really glad you're here. I just want to kind of call out the team that's here that works on this. You'll see many of them throughout the night, but they help put tonight together as well as the event that in November. So first is Allison Ostrowski and Carla Fantozzi back there. Sylvia Cisneros back there, and Cecilia Tovar, and our tech guru Tom Poon. And we also want to thank City TV, who is broadcasting this live on the Facebook event for the page, for our Facebook event, and it'll also be archived on the page, as well as Benny's Tacos, who gave us the great food that we're all enjoying. So with that, I'll be back a little later in the evening to talk with you about kind of the future of what we're thinking. But really, we're here tonight to start a conversation about how we can broaden the community engagement and input into this event and really make this an event that is responding to the needs of the community and the desires of the community. So with that, I will ask Cecilia to the stage to welcome our first guest.
Hola, buenas noches. Soy Cecilia Tovar de la biblioteca. So I'm going to go back and forth en español y en inglés para las familias que están aquí. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Thank you so much for being here. So I just want to talk a little bit about how I met Craig and Armando. When the library at Pico opened up and we started getting involved with Dia de los Muertos, I was just always thinking, how can we connect the library part of this event? And for me, it was very important and also by talking to the familias and at the Pico neighborhood, that they really wanted to make sure that we highlighted the education and to understand what the Dia de los Muertos is. And I thought, well, that it is something that is very important and is part of our role as a library for the city. So one day I got in contact I was watching their documental, and I thought, oh my God, this group, this Metamorphosis is the company. Their work with the community in Mexico to put it together, a documentary, and they were filming the Oaxacan families and how they do Dia de Muertos in Oaxaca. So I contact Greg through email and I said, may I show your documentary at the library? And we'll have a discussion about your documentary. He said yes. And last year, we actually invited them to come because they just put together another one about Michoacan and Tzitzuzan. And it's a beautiful documentary and film. And so I was very lucky to have them at the library and have a discussion on how they got involved. And they will talk about how they got involved with this project. And I am so happy that this event is going to be part of you and your input, and I hope that everybody gets involved. We're here to support you, and so I hope that you like the presentation that Craig and Armando. Armando y Craig, para las personas que no hablan inglés, la manera en que nos involucramos y los conocí es por el primer año cuando recién se abrió la biblioteca Pico y que estábamos hablando de cómo podíamos conectar la biblioteca con este evento y la educación y lo que ustedes necesitaban. Y gracias a que pude enseñar el documental de Craig y Armando el primer año sobre las familias de Oaxaca y cómo celebran el Día de Muertos allá. Y el año pasado pudieron venir también y presentar, pero ahora cómo celebran el Día de Muertos en Michoacán. Y ellos ahorita van a dar una introducción y hablar de su proyecto y lo que hacen, cómo ellos trabajan con la comunidad en México.
Good evening to all y buenas noches a todos. Desafortunadamente no nos habían dicho que podía ser en español también lo que tenemos en inglés, pero sí, los dos hablamos español y cualquier pregunta que vamos a dar tiempo después para preguntas, que por favor que nos hagan cualquier pregunta. Y este es Armando Espinosa y soy Craig Johnson de Metamorphosis Documentation Project. This is Armando Espinosa and I'm Craig Johnson from Metamorphosis Documentation Project. We'd like to thank Cecilia Tovar, the City of Santa Monica, and the Santa Monica Public Library for inviting us to speak to you here tonight about our experiences documenting the Day of the Dead in 2 different communities in Oaxaca and Michoacan. First, I'd like to speak a little bit about our organization and why we do what we do and how we do it. We're a nonprofit organization based in the belief of the richness and importance of cultural traditions, and we focus on cross-cultural rituals and dances throughout the Americas. We believe valuing historic cultures and rituals is necessary for them to survive and thrive in our contemporary world. We work in collaborative projects with mestizo and indigenous communities to support and document their rituals and dances in their own cultural settings. And then we share them, as we've done here in Santa Monica, with wider audiences to try to foster an understanding of these distinct cultures. It's an artistic and an educational endeavor, and as I said, we try to support all cultures through this method. What we do specifically is first, we have to prepare for what we're going to do. We look for a community that is of interest to us, that has traditional culture or rituals that are important to them. And we study the rituals, we study the history of the culture in that community. And then, in this case, that we're doing a series of Day of the Dead projects. We've done 3 so far. And we researched the European development of the Christian complex of, in this case, All Souls Day and All Saints Day, and the pre-contact feasts for the dead in Mesoamerica, and in this case, in Mexico. We also, as you'll see as we go on, have to familiarize ourselves with the differences in each community with the way they celebrate this feast day. Every time we begin a project, we are, as non-members of the community, we have to show our sincere respect for the community and the rituals being documented. We do this collaborating with a community museum always, and they're instrumental in helping to inform us and orient us so that we can be successful. When we gain, and as we have to, gain the trust of the community, then we're able to transmit their voice in presenting their rituals. And our documentaries are always done with the voice of the community, not with our impression of what's happening. After we've produced a documentary, we gift the rights to reproduce and sell that documentary to the community museum, with all of the profits going to support their community museum. Besides doing the documentary, we also develop a related community project that's of more direct benefit to the community. And in these projects, in most of them, it's involved sponsoring a new permanent exhibit in their community museum, and in these cases to the Day of the Dead. And in our most recent project, at the request of the community museum, we did a filming and editing workshop of cultural documentaries for several young members of the community, so that they could continue to document their own rituals. All of this work as a whole is oriented towards the mission of our nonprofit, which is to help to protect, preserve, and promote these rituals and traditional cultures. So now I'd like to pass it off to Armando, who will talk specifically about these 2 communities and the similarities and differences in the way that they celebrate Day of the Dead.
Bueno, creo que vale la pena traducir esa última frase, y es que nuestra misión es ayudar a proteger, preservar y promover las culturas tradicionales. Ahora vuelvo al inglés. Yo trato de leer porque si empiezo a hablar, esto va a durar 2 horas. Así es. Yeah, I try to read because if I start talking, this will be 2 hours long. Uh, we would like to share with you our experiences and some of what we've learned working in communities documenting the rituals or celebrations of Day of the Dead. We have done 3 projects resulting in in 3 documentaries about Day of the Dead, 1 in Bolivia and 2 in Mexico. We are currently doing research for another project and also planning for a project here in the United States to explore how Mexican immigrants celebrate Day of the Dead when their deceased are back in Mexico. Contrary to what people might think, Day of the Dead is celebrated in all of Latin America in one way or another, and it varies from place to place. In Mexico, the celebrations also vary from region to region, and the focus of the ritual varies, although the general visual form might be very similar. There is also urban secular celebrations of Day of the Dead with public displays of altars, parades, and painted skull faces. The traditional rituals of Day of the Dead consist on 3 parts. What Mexican-American historian of religion, anthropologist, and Mesoamerican scholar David Carrasco calls world making, world centering, and world renewal. World making refers to the preparations, the creation of the ritual space, which begins months in advance and might include the gathering of or making of the necessary provisions like flowers, bread, chocolate, special food products, candles, etc. World centering refers to preparing the family altar, the center of the family's universe. The altar will be home to the souls of the dead during that day. And lastly, world renewal refers to the rituals that honor the dead. These rituals begin in the home and culminate in the cemetery. This feast regenerates the community and their sense of belonging, thus creating a sense of well-being. These 3 dimensions of the ritual, although having different focuses and expressions in different communities, are part of every celebration we had witnessed and experienced. We want to share examples of 2 celebrations of Day of the Dead we have documented in Mexico to reference the difference and similarities in the celebration in these 2 communities and how these 3 dimensions manifest in the celebrations. In the Zapotec community of Teotitlán del Valle in Oaxaca, where we did a project and a documentary on Noche de los Muertos, or La Festividad de los Muertos, en zapoteco Lanish Tetugul. The emphasis is in family relations, the sharing with the dead, the extended family, the spiritual kin family, godparents and godchildren. One by one, people form a network of relationships that connect the entire community. World making. In this community, the extended families gather to prepare chocolate, and in the daily market buy fruits, nuts, and other traditional foods. They either buy or collect the traditional flor de muerto, which in this community is not marigolds. In Teotitlán del Valle, some marigolds are placed on the altar and are used at the cemetery, but the flor de muerto that is offered is a wildflower of the sage family. Its strong fragrance fills all the houses. On November 1st, the families prepare the altars for the soul's arrival at 3 in the afternoon. Activities center on the altar room. The altar is adorned with the photos of the deceased family members, flowers, fruit, candles, and bread. And this is world centering. World renewal. At the time of the arrival of the souls, the family makes offerings of special foods, water, and chocolate on the altar and offers prayers. Extended family and spiritual kin family arrive one by one, bringing offerings of candles, flor de muerto, bread and chocolate, and prayers to honor and share with the souls. While spending time reminiscing with the families, the visitors are served hot chocolate and bread. As the visitors leave, they are given fruit, bread, and chocolate to take home. Quizás así es más cómodo. This will be more comfortable. The ritual sharing at the homes continued until 3 p.m. On November 2nd, when all the families of the community gather in the cemetery to spend time in the tombs of their family members, partying with them and bidding them farewell until the next year. In the Purepecha community of Sinsunsan, where we just finished a documentary on Noche de Muertos or Noche de Ánimas, the emphasis is on helping the souls of the deceased family members reach a pleasant and glorious resting place. With the participation of family, spiritual kin family, and the community. World making in this community in June, the planting of the marigolds marks the beginning of the preparations of the Feast of the Dead. As the date approaches, families prepare the traditional foods, the home altar, and the arches. Elaborate arches are prepared for the first year offering of the recently deceased. These arches symbolizes the door through which the soul passes to reach their spiritual resting place. World centering. Novenarios and novenas are held on behalf of the souls of the people who have died during the previous year. Each evening for 9 days before November 1st, extended family, spiritual kin family, and community members gather at the family home to pray the rosary and sing hymns. Meant to help the soul of the deceased reach a glorious resting place, this preoccupation with the destiny of the souls was shared by Mesoamerican religion and the Roman Catholic religion. In Sinsunsan, taking care of the well-being of the dead is social responsibility beyond the grave. World renewal. On November 1st, the families gather around the home altar and make offerings of food, flowers, and candles. Later that afternoon, family bring their arches, flowers, candles, and food offerings in procession to the cemetery and adorn the graves. The families spend the night in the cemetery conversing and partying with the souls of the dead. The next morning, they share the food offerings from the graves with other families and receive similar food offerings from the families in exchange. They remain in the cemetery till the afternoon. The portal by which the souls arrive and leave is only open once a year on Day of the Dead. It is only on that day that the souls of the deceased during the previous year can reach their resting place. These two communities have different beliefs about where the souls wait for their first Day of the Dead. In Teotitlán del Valle, it is believed that the souls stay in the cemetery and play a role as spiritual keepers in the cemetery. In Sinsunsan, it is believed that the souls stay in the family homes all that time. Customarily, the families keep a home altar with offerings until the Noche de Ánimas. The celebrations of Day of the Dead in indigenous and rural Mexico and Latin America are agricultural rituals based on a sense of reciprocity between the living and the dead. All these celebrations include the sharing of the products of the harvest with the ancestors and the community. They emphasize that the family and the community well-being is directly related to the way they honor their dead. These highly ritualized festivities reaffirm the connection with the land, family and community group, and the spiritual connection with the ancestors. In pre-Hispanic times, the cult of the dead was central to the Mesoamerican religion. It was as it was to Orthodox Spanish Catholicism. The friars involved in the immense task of Christianization concentrated their efforts on what they considered the most important aspects of that task: the administration of the sacraments, the organization of the congregation, and the regulation of local religion. They did not pay much attention to the cult of the dead, which allowed it to develop spontaneously, mixing the old beliefs with the new religion without the church's supervision. By the mid-17th century, the rituals and ceremonies of Day of the Dead were established, and until now, the church has been unable or unwilling to readdress this wonderful celebration. The spontaneous character of the syncretic process, the emphasis on the private aspects of the cult of the dead, and its marginal position entailed basically the same consequences: a relative high degree of freedom in the process of blending of the elements, a creativity in combining them, and the retention of more pre-Hispanic elements that would otherwise be possible. But the ideology of Catholicism was a powerful counterbalancing mechanism. Its influence made itself felt in two respects. It gave at least an outward Catholic appearance to many practices and behaviors, and more importantly, it provided the Indians with a whole array of rituals and ceremonial practices. An interesting phenomenon happens in urban centers regarding these celebrations. As people move away from the cities and become removed from their agricultural connection with the land, the celebrations become more secular festivities. Especially in the late 20th century and now in the beginning of the 21st, the spiritual connection with the ancestors often takes second place to the public and popular aspects of the celebration. In the immigrant communities in the United States and other countries outside Latin America, the celebration becomes identity markers, proud symbols of the culture. Although privately, families might or might not ritualistically honor their ancestors on that day, publicly, they rejoice in their cultural heritage, bringing families and communities together, creating, again, a sense of belonging, pride, and well-being. These celebrations outside Mexico are extremely important in maintaining the cultural heritage in the recent immigrant population, reconnecting long-term immigrants with their cultural roots, and teaching the children of immigrants about their ancestral culture. There is the danger, though, that these public celebrations might become devoid of individual connection, that they might become commercial ventures that exploit the culture instead of celebrating it, that they might celebrate death as a concept and not as a personal family reality, that the celebrations might become homogeneous parties with painted skull faces while lacking the soulful reflection integral to the traditional rituals and celebrations. Traditional communities face the same dilemma, trying to balance their celebration and the influx of tourism. Tourism becomes an obstacle to the celebrations, but brings much needed revenue to the communities. A Purépecha woman, Guadalupe Dimas, from Santa Fe de la Laguna in Michoacán, once told us, "Do not call them dead. They're not dead till they're forgotten." We hope that the celebration of Dia de Muertos keeps the focus on family, community, and on remembering and honoring with gratitude all those that came before us. So, si tienen alguna pregunta o alguna pregunta de las celebraciones, de la organización, de lo que hablamos. in English or Spanish, doesn't matter.
And this time we can translate answers.
Yeah. Bueno, okay. Oh yeah, the gentleman over here is asking.
Que la pregunta es por qué hacen los novenarios de 9 días. ¿Por qué 9 días? That question is, why do they do a novenario of 9 days?
Well, the novenarios are 9 days. 9 days is the time it takes a woman to give birth. 9 months, I mean. 9 days. So, in the time of the Romans, they used to have a feast that is one of the feasts that influences the celebrations of Day of the Dead or the celebrations of Fieles Difuntos in the Catholic Church. And that ritual was parentalia. ¿Vas a traducir?
Que en el tiempo de los romanos había una fiesta que se llama parentalia, que era una manera de honrar a los muertos en ese tiempo, que después tuvo influencia en la Iglesia Católica y después acá en las Américas.
Sí.
Okay. Y entonces de los 9 días en ese tiempo se relacionaba con los 9 meses de gestación de la mujer para dar a luz.
Y entonces, a la misma forma, como un paralelo en la religión, en inglés, no importa. The same way in Mesoamerica, for the same reasons, in Mesoamerica, the world of the dead had 9 levels. So,
Igual, por su lado, en Mesoamérica, aquí, los niveles de los muertos, el mundo de los muertos tenía 9 niveles y por la misma razón de los 9 meses de la gestación.
y eso poco a poco influenció a la Iglesia Católica. Little by little, it influenced the Catholic Church, and the practice of novenarios started happening. Novenarios, most people that know novenarios, they know that they're done after the person dies. But in Sinsunsan, they make them before the Day of the Dead also.
Que eso de los romanos influenció a la Iglesia Católica para que tuvieran novenas o novenarios, que lo más común en la Iglesia Católica es que la novena se celebra justo después de que fallece la persona. Pero en Sinsunsan, además de hacerlo después de que fallece, en los 9 días antes del primer día de muertos, después de que fallece, también hacen un novenario para ayudar al alma.
And that's basically how. Oh, okay. Okay.
Questions?
Any other questions?
Do you do classes somewhere where you, because this is a lot to take in real quick?
I know.
Because
No,
I would like
we-
to learn more.
We really don't. We do talks in, similar to this in universities, museums, when we show the movies. But the movies are the learning tool by themselves. The thing about the movies is that we give them to the community. So we don't put them in the internet because the community is supposed to make the money from selling the movies.
Oh, okay.
So it's hard to see them unless we're showing them as an educational tool for these same reasons.
Okay.
But we'll be here in California in October. We just had a meeting with the consulate, the Mexican consulate, to try to make a tour through different consulates in Southern California, and we're going to go all the way to Tacoma, Washington. because in Tacoma, Washington, is all the paisanos from Sinsunsan live in Tacoma. There is 7,000 people in Sinsunsan, there is 1,500 Sinsunseños in Tacoma.
Wow.
So we want to show the movie on Day of the Dead in Tacoma, Washington. So from mid-October on, we'll be around and we'll let everybody know. We'll probably have a showing with the library, right?
Do you have any written materials that people might be able to look up?
I have in our website, which is Metamorphosis Documentation Project, no, metamorphosisdp.org, we have a few of the talks we have given that are there.
And the metamorphosis is spelled in Spanish, so it's the M instead of the H. Metamorphosisdp.org. And for those who speak Spanish, on the first page on the upper right, there's a little button that says En Español, and if you hit that button,
The whole page.
And you have updates, like every year, and everywhere you go, you have updates.
I'm sorry?
Updates on the website.
Yes, we don't post. We post on Facebook. If you go to the web page, there is a button as a link to Facebook, and we post in Facebook more often than we post in the website. But it's not every day because we have a lot of things going on, so it's really hard to keep up with social media on a daily basis.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Mire, maestro, aquí en la comunidad de Santa Mónica es muy marcado el crecimiento que se tiene acerca de la celebración. Y nos queda muy claro nosotros que obviamente es un respeto a una tradición ancestral, ¿no? Cuando usted menciona proteger, promover esta tradición, hay otro concepto que dice, ¿no? Es
Proteger, promover y
preservar y promover, ¿no? Me queda muy claro que Cecilia les invita a ustedes para que el trabajo que se hace aquí ya por algunos años se consolide. ¿Qué es lo que realmente nosotros como miembros de esta comunidad tenemos que tener para hacer que este proyecto se convierta en un proyecto importante, un proyecto que llegue ahí donde ustedes están? ¿Cuál es ese puente?
Bueno, la razón por qué en lo que hablamos hoy, yo marco esas 3 dimensiones del ritual, que es los preparativos, el centrar la familia y la comunidad alrededor del altar y el compartir de la comunidad. Eso es, o sea, si usted lo piensa, esto es parte del preparativo de la festividad. Y ya se está estableciendo como dentro del espacio ritual, porque se está uniendo la comunidad para tratar de hacerlo mejor. Y si se siguen esas 3 etapas.
Igual la segunda etapa, en este caso, sería al planear y llegar a cabo la celebración de cómo lo van a hacer y tenerlo todo listo para hacerse. Y la tercera parte, la renovación del mundo, como se dice, es la misma celebración en que se juntan todos y comparten todos en celebrar este Día de Muertos.
Y con los difuntos en cuenta, o sea, no se puede
Sí,
perder,
no, igual.
no se puede perder el foco de que se está honrando a los ancestros. Sin ellos no seríamos nada, ¿no? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm a product of colonization.
Yeah, we all
My
are.
family is from Rancho Boca de Santa Monica. These are my family.
We all
I
are.
want to know that part of my Mexican heritage. I have a lot of other heritage
I don't understand what you said.
Okay, yes. Okay, here, well, I'm sorry, we're doing it the opposite way because we don't have a translator into English. So the question was with the way that we work and doing our work in the communities, how can that be applied to Santa Monica and to you all who are here in the community regarding this celebration of Day of the Dead? And basically, we were saying that you follow the three principles that have been noted about how this celebration also happens. It's world making, world centering, and world renewal. And world making is what we're doing right now, or what you're doing right now. Excuse me, world making.
Yeah.
Is deciding what's going to happen and getting everything together. In this case, it's ideas and plans and how it should be done. And world centering is actually doing all that so that you're up to the day of when the celebration is going to happen. Organizing and getting things ready, getting whatever physical things ready, the organizational things ready, having it all in place. And world renewal is doing the celebration. Centering is the sharing with the community, with the families, with the dead in that day or days.
And always having in mind that you're doing it for the ancestors, that you're honoring the ancestors, that's the basis that promotes the celebration. Other celebrations have other motivations, but the main motivation of this celebration should be honoring all those that came before you.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we need to move on. Do we have time for? Do you have? Okay.
Yeah, if I understand that so much of the importance is the preparation and involvement preparing, how do we as a community balance the experience from those who engage in all the pre-work from those who may only show up on the day to observe, participate, honor, who have not been involved in the whole process? So how do we create that opportunity?
I think that the main thing is recognizing that all those people, even though they didn't participate in the preparations, are part of the community and deserve to be included.
And there's also, we've seen in different communities in Sinsunsan, it's a little bit different because it's more of what you might be imagining here, where there's a big influx of tourists that come for that day who don't have any real idea of the meaning of the whole thing. And that's harder. But it does happen, and in other communities, and like in Teotitlan, where the tourists also come, but not in the same quantities. And it's easier in the sense, but that they can see the motivation and the celebration that's happening, and the motivation and the sharing that people are doing, and appreciate it and become involved in it. It happens in both places, and it can happen on the larger scale also. But it takes the community who is involved to be focused on what they're doing so that people who come can share that.
And also it's contagious.
Great. Okay, last question?
Hi, Lydia Ponte, Venice. Hi, Venice. I think that one of the things that's lacking is connecting the four directions, in the sense that we're a large community that's been displaced on all sides, and that if we were to engage where their altars and celebrations are, we could actually do exactly that, is to have some healing as well as remembering our family members and friends and community people who have come before us, especially with all the violence that we've seen, and now we're all gentrified. So I would look forward to a website sharing hyperlinks and knowing that, you know, we could go full circle in a good way and find each other and share some chocolate.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I think that's so valuable. World building, world centering, and world renewal. I think that those will be our guideposts as we move through this process. Thank you so much for joining us.
Can't wait to come to the celebration.
Yes. Okay, so next we have another special guest that Cultural Affairs originally started working with when we were doing a public art master plan process. And we really wanted to ensure that we were reaching out into parts of the community where people are and not just the folks that show up to the 6:30 p.m. community meeting. We realize it's a very limited group of people that are able to often make those meetings. So we worked with a wonderful artist, Mario Mezquita, who developed a Paletas Santa Monica project for us and went into parks in all 5 zip codes in Santa Monica with a trike with popsicles and said, your popsicle for your thoughts on public art. And we got some really rich responses about how the community wants to engage in art, but also engage in their community through the arts. And so as we started thinking about how we could engage with the community around our Day of the Dead event, we thought immediately of Mario, and he came out to last year's Day of the Dead and did a Paleta style project that was specifically tailored for that celebration. So he's here today to talk about the project, and he's here with his artistic partner, Cole James, who's in the back, who's a teacher or professor at SMC and also an artist. And so you can fill out your own surveys at the back and talk with them about this project as well. But please join me in welcoming Mario.
Microphones are not my favorite. Oh, okay. It's gonna go away? Yeah. All right, so once again, my name is Mario Mezquita. I'm an artist, educator, activist. I've worked in education, whether it be universities to high schools, and also now I work at a contemporary art museum where I bring contemporary art into the classroom at various high schools in San Diego. But I wanted to share a little bit about our project that we had done and also how it directly relates to the Dia de los Muertos, and also how we were able to gather people's opinions on how they celebrated their past loved ones, as well as what they wanted to see at the celebration itself. So as was mentioned, in August, we hit the streets here in Santa Monica asking various people all over what they thought public art meant to them here in Santa Monica. We really wanted to make sure that we got voices from people who typically, as was also mentioned, don't come to these types of meetings. And it was really important to kind of figure out what type of art people actually related with. So this was one form that we were able to connect with various people here in Santa Monica. We created spaces and moments in time where we opened up conversations in exchange for a delicious popsicle or paleta of various different flavors, and also asked people to kind of give their opinion. This was actually our team member, so we were, actually there was 2 people missing from this team, but we were out every single weekend in August in 2017. And these are some of the resulting interactions that we had with various neighborhoods in Santa Monica. So we had kids drawing what they thought art they would like to see in either public spaces or schools. We had adults filling out surveys, and we even were able to hit up some different parks where different community activity was happening as well. So when I was invited back to Santa Monica, the overarching question that I was invited to ask people is what they wanted to see in the celebration. Was there something that was lacking? Was there something that could be done better? Or maybe it was fine as is, as it was. But I also realized that before I asked that question, there needed to be some sort of personal connection to that question as well. And ultimately, what we were all coming to celebrate the Day of the Dead is to commemorate kind of our past loved ones. And so that was ultimately the first question that I decided to ask people, was how they celebrated their past loved ones. These are some photos from that specific day. So what we also wanted to do is make sure that people felt welcomed into our space. We wanted to make sure that families of all ages were able to participate, so that included mask making for the little ones. We had surveys for everyone to answer. We even had some families answer their survey together, so they had their 5-year-olds helping their parents out, answering the questions. And then we also invited people to display their surveys, as we have in the back of the room as well. So what you see in the back of the room is maybe a very tiny portion of all the surveys that we collected, because we actually collected over 150 different surveys from that day. And most of you had actually also picked up one of these yellow survey summaries as well, which I'll touch on in a little bit. So this is an example of the tables being set up for family activities to happen, as long with the empty surveys. And what we wanted to make sure that these surveys also had some sort of branding that were related to Dia de los Muertos. So when you actually fold up the surveys, they're actually a calavera that closes its mouth. We had my team members, we took different shifts in being able to hand out the popsicles. We did ask that families did at least complete either a mask or a survey first before we handed out the popsicles. And this is an example of one of those exchanges. So one of the great things that I think everybody on my team wanted to make sure that we did is that we actually connected with people from different generations, and it was really important that family participated together versus just an individual thing. And I think we kind of heard that in our previous presentation, that's also really part of in preparation for Day of the Dead and celebrating your past loved ones, that it's really a family affair, that it's not necessarily just an individual experience. So the surveys were given in both English and Spanish, so people could answer in their language of choice. The two questions, like I had mentioned, one is personal, one general. So the first one, how do you celebrate or commemorate your past loved ones or ancestors? And what type of activity, workshop, film, or talk would you like to see happen during this celebration? And I asked them to be specific so we could at least dig a little bit deeper in terms of what people really wanted to see at following celebrations as well. As a result, we had 153 surveys completed. I had 200 paletas, and we gave all of them away. And of course, we had mask making for all. So this is a result, the white skull is a result that 14% of our surveys were answered in Spanish for the first question, followed by 12% of the second question was answered in Spanish. And then the resulting pink, 86 and 88% were answered in English. Once again, this is a little more example of family affairs, really answering the questions, having fun, and talking with one another about what the Day of the Dead and commemorating past loved ones could be. So in that initial question asking about how people commemorate their loved ones, 23% of the people who answered the survey answered that they do make a home altar of some kind. 15% of the people come regularly to visit the cemetery. 13% tell stories about their past loved ones. And also 13% do activities in their loved one's name. So whether that be dancing, going on a special trip, or even visiting the ocean was also mentioned as well. Then that was followed by 11% about thinking on their loved ones, so thinking about favorite memories. 10% answered about attending a celebration like Day of the Dead. 7% also said that they specifically pray, and also 3% commemorate a special day, so usually the loved one's birthday. So this was an example of some of the activities that were offered at Day of the Dead celebration. And the reason why I put that in there is because some of the suggestions that followed were kind of a mix between celebrating the secular activities and also asking what happened to some of the spirituality too about the celebration too, because there was recognition that there might have been a little bit of a lack of balance between the two, and that's actually that coming from the public was also noted as well. However, 12%, let me gather my other paper so I can better explain what some of these percentages mean. 12% of our survey people answered that they wanted to have more talks. So I think the documentary did a good example of potentially what people wanted to see, which was talking about maybe the origins of the Day of the Dead and how it's celebrated in different areas. What was also mentioned is potentially even talk about how loved ones are celebrated in different cultures beyond Mexico or Latin America as well, so that could be brought in. Then there was 13% answered that they wanted to see more vendors, so whether that be food, whether that be different tchotchkes, like little knickknacks, but also Day of the Dead specific things, so that could potentially be even calaveras or other little, I don't know how to say that, monitos in English. Little figurines that people could buy just like as memorabilia. Then, of course, there were different workshops. So workshops included, altar making, what it takes to make an altar, cooking, even costume or craft making. There was even suggestion of potentially a dance workshop, so some of the ballet folclóricos that were being performed, maybe there was a workshop on that. Papel picado, and even sugar skull making, or decorating rather. Then 18% of our surveys suggested more performances. Now I know there was a lot of performances going on and there was one stage, but I think what I got out of reading a lot of people's responses is that sometimes it was hard to understand when a performance was actually beginning, when was something ending, what type of performance it was, whether the audience could be involved, or was it just a performance that they were supposed to watch. So I think that's where that overarching number came from, was not understanding what type of performance and who it was really directed for. Then as we moved down the list, film screening was also up there. Film screening, what came up a lot was of course the Book of Life, I think it was, the Book of Life, because Coco hadn't just barely come out. So I'm sure next year it'll be Coco. There was also emphasis on storytelling. So I think this is coming from wanting more of a community effort coming together where people could tell either stories about their past loved ones, but also maybe even myth stories about Day of the Dead or how other people celebrate that as well. There was also mention of a communal altar, and that mention of a communal altar meant either people coming together to put a big Santa Monica altar together and or hosting different altar making contests as well. So that was suggested on various levels. Interactive activities, that one was mentioned in various forms of that phrase. They wanted more engagement. So I'm assuming that they also meant art making activities where where all family can participate, and that it's not just directed to the kids, but where the entire family can participate together. There was also mention of more art, more of potentially a parade or procession, whether it be at the beginning of the celebration or at the very end, to either open up or close the day. There was also mention of even public blessings. So I think that was also noted in some traditions that could potentially be highlighted through the documentary. And then also traditional activities. Communal commemoration, which again I think attribute to more public blessings or storytelling or communal altars. And then a more sense of feeling or evocation of sentiment. And I think from the answers that I got, this was highlighted more under being a little bit more spiritual or having that spirituality put back into the celebration as well. As you can see, there was some suggestion, less than 1% of each of the following things that people did want to see or were suggested, which was more adult-geared activities, cultural activities, however, dancing was definitely in there. Event advertisement, so I think people also there was a big group of people who didn't know the event was actually happening, so they more stumbled upon it more than anything. But I think also maybe a more clear schedule so people would understand what was going on throughout the day. And then a designated parking, and then of course trash, recycling, and composting actually seem to be suggested for everything. Especially for us, because we did create our own trash. We had plastics that we had to get rid of, but because the way I and my colleagues think, we had our own trash bags to make sure that we could collect that. But I think for everyone, that actually became an issue, asking us if they could throw their trash in our trash bags as well. And this was our team for the day. Once again, it was a great chance for all of us to get together with different families and share our own experiences, because parents also asked us how we talked about celebrating the dead. Sometimes, as I heard from some of my colleagues, it was actually the first time that parents decided to bring up the subject of death to their kids. So this was kind of a fun activity to talk about that as well. And that's all I have for everyone. And I hope everybody did get a chance to take the summary, because this sums it all up, as I explained too. If you would like to fill out a survey at the end of the presentation, or take a couple masks that we do have that you can decorate, feel free to stop on by our table in the back.
Thank you, Mario, so very much. Do you think we can switch to the other PowerPoint really quick? A lot of interesting information that he shared and collected, and so I hope that you all got that, and if there was anything, this is going to really be helpful. Were there any questions about that or no? Okay. So I just wanted to do really quickly, just to let everyone know a little bit about how this all started here in Santa Monica. I'm Carla Fantozzi, and myself and Allison Ostrowski over there in 2012 were assigned to work on putting together a Day of the Dead at the cemetery, and the city was also at that time doing a cultural master plan, which included about doing more cultural events in the community. So we decided to work with Paulina Sagun, who was one of the, let's see, how do I make this work? The other way? Okay. And we put together an event at the cemetery that included a ceremony and the creating of offerings to be put at the graves. And if you want to look over on the wall there, you can see all of the different flyers that we had. We were really trying to be very aware of all of the events that were already happening in the city for that. So even though we did our small event at the cemetery, we had lots of all the other events that were happening were on the back of the postcard. It was a popular event and eventually grew to quite a few events and a bigger flyer, so over the years. Our two big things that we focused on in this was to really be respectful of the different events that were happening in the city, but also to focus on and not want to duplicate those, but also to really focus on the ceremonial and sacred things that would happen in a cemetery. So those were two areas that we tried to do, and we did partner with we tried to publicize all of the other events that were happening. Right, so that was happening, and as the years went on, the council and others in the city wanted to have it grow, and let's see. And we added a memory wall, calavera paintings, La Catrina. Oops. And it kept on growing incrementally with more, with altars and memories and dancers and a larger stage and more performances. And this is from this past year where we had storytellers and we had Mario there. So that's just to sort of set the stage of what it's been, and now we're looking to what it's going to be, and we're hoping to have all of you be a part of it. So I'm going to turn it over to Shannon.
You're going to stay up here, all right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right, so we're almost at 8 o'clock, so I'll make this brief, but as we've kind of said, you know, our goal is to really open this up and help the community be involved in the future of the event. One of the things that we've heard in feedback and evaluation over the past couple of years is they want their ideas to be heard as well and incorporated into the event. And so we want to provide an opportunity and a forum for us to get those ideas and incorporate them as possible into the event. So part of that is hosting this meeting this evening, but we're really here as for a next step. We're going to be launching application process. We're convening an advisory committee. I think some of you may have picked this up on your way in. This is an online form as well, so we're not super old school with everything, but we're going to be convening an advisory committee that will really help us guide our work with the community as we think about how this event is going to grow into the future. In terms of the committee, we're looking for up to 7 people. And we're looking for people that have a diversity of perspectives and experiences within both the Latino community and the larger Santa Monica community as well. So we have a simple application form for you to tell us about yourself, why you're interested, what Day of the Dead means to you. And so we encourage you to complete that. Do we have the bit.ly? Can we get to that? There's a direct link to it, and what we'll do after this event, there's a Facebook event for tonight's event, and we'll post that link as well, but it's tinyurl.com/smdiacommittee. It'll take you directly to the form. We encourage you to share it with your friends and other people in the community that may want to be part of this process as well. Our ultimate goal with this is to develop a Day of the Dead that is of, by, and for the community. And we can only do that by working with the community in a deep and authentic way. So with that, I want to thank you for being here. Hope you'll apply to join us and open it up for questions.
My name is Bernice Onofre, and I've been in Santa Monica for about 50 years. I just have to bring back the dates, a little bit of history. 2012 was not the year that started in Santa Monica, but that I recall. In the late 1980s, there were a lot of shootings in Santa Monica. And there was a procession and the Day of the Dead and et cetera, that I was able to participate on. It started from the church. And that happened, I guess, 2000 or 1989 or something. So would you please correct the dates in your slide? Also, I don't know how, but I didn't participate in any of the survey. So I will appreciate that you have this sent to the neighborhood associations, like the Pico neighborhood and the other associations, so that they can have the information, because we all need to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jan, did you have a question? Comment?
I also just wanted to add a little bit to the history of the event and acknowledge the work of another longtime community member, Paulina Saugun. I know, thank you, Carla, for mentioning her name, but she did bring this event to the city. The city didn't come to her. She and Leo Garcia, wherever he is, at Highways, started doing a Day of the Dead altar ceremony as early as 2005, I believe. Yeah, and Paulina was part of a film called 90404, which was looking at the history of this community. Paulina, most of you probably know, is long time born and raised here in Santa Monica, and she during 90404. Was interviewing Mr. Collins, also born and raised here in Santa Monica, an African-American stone engraver at Woodlawn Cemetery, and that's where the idea to start to bring the ceremony back to Woodlawn Cemetery began, and Paulina brought it to Jessica Cusick. The city manager said, no, you can't do it in the cemetery, and they did it anyway, and later, permission was granted. And so I just really wanted to honor that person's work in bringing that, restoring that ceremonial ritual here in Santa Monica.
I think it's important to note there are a lot of different Day of the Dead celebrations that happen. What we were talking about is the city event, and of course that's not the only event, and there's a rich history of that here in the city as well. Did you have a comment, Leo?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just think that it's, the Day of the Dead is centuries old, and it doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to all of us.
Yes.
And I love the effort of it all, and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Great.
That's all I had to say.
Thanks for joining us. I think on that note, let's say goodnight unless anyone has any further questions. We'll be around the staff. You can certainly talk to the staff if you have any questions. Okay. You have a question?
I've heard a lot of feedback, and I obviously have my own feedback, being a resident here, raised here as well, raised my 6 children here as well. So I have my own views of the Day of the Dead celebration here, and as a Latina, as a Native woman, I have my own views and my beliefs in it. But also because I'm a community activist, I'm here in the community, and I'm always hearing back from the community. I'm always like, hey, wait, I don't work for the city. Why am I getting all the complaints? Tell the city. But there was a lot of people that approached me, and they were like, why is the community not involved? Why is Paulina bogarting this celebration that's thousands of years old, that our people have been celebrating thousands of years? No one owns it. It's a ceremony. We don't own it. And so people were not even allowed to do flowers when it was finally introduced at the cemetery. It was a terrible experience for a lot of people here in the community. Other complaints that I got were, they weren't seeing our local vendors, like food vendors, people, there was this last year and the year before when we finally had vendors, because I know that Paulina was very strict about not having any celebration. Finally, we did get it into a celebration mode. Thank you, whoever, initiated that and pushed for that. That was another issue, local vendors. Another thing is I got several complaints when finally our local Baile Folclórico de Santa Monica, our folklorico group of Santa Monica, finally was invited to dance. We were over on the side stage, a real small stage, and so a lot of community members came out, and they were so excited that here they were going to see their neighbors, their relatives, their community folklorico dancers on the stage. They were waiting at the big stage, waiting and waiting and waiting, and never saw us. And they're like, Gina, what happened to your group? I was like, we danced already, we performed. They're like, where? So I got all those complaints. You guys maybe didn't receive them, but I got all those complaints. So local community involvement. And I'm so grateful that you guys did this tonight. This is great. But you need to have local community involvement. You have dancers here, you have food vendors here, you have artists here in Santa Monica. You have it all here, people that live here that were born and raised here. Paulina does not live in Santa Monica either. So include us. And again, this is the beginning of it, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina. I think what we're doing is launching a process where we can get community feedback. So we can take a couple more questions, but I think, Gina, I would encourage you. I know you have really strong feelings and you feel passionately about this event, so I really hope you'll consider joining us. And we're going to have a lot of opportunities for us all to talk. This is just the beginning of the conversation.
I went and I took my family. Like I said, I'm a descendant of Rancho Boca de Santa Monica. Probably 70%, if not more, of my family is buried there. Well, we got there. Paulina was in charge of the flowers. She would only give me 2 flowers. I said, I have so many graves here. I have more family. My family was so disgusted they left and they never came back. And I'm Rancho Boca de Santa Monica. So is she. So is she.
Thank you. I want to be mindful that we're talking about a person that's not in the room and can't respond. And no, I know. I'm just saying we need to be mindful of that. So did we have one final comment?
Yes, I'm going to try my poor English, but because I want to share this. I am from Oaxaca, and I'm very proud of my culture. And to me, it's wonderful to see how you people are interested in learning it. And I want to emphasize that for us, this is a sacred thing. It's not a fair. So I wish you can see it like that, because every time we remember our loved ones, we prepare ourselves before, and at that moment, we make that connection. Like the professor said, it's contagious, and you can feel that. And I'm very happy to hear that you all are interested. And I just want to express that I wish this can see as something sacred, not as a fair. It's not a fair. It's something beyond that connect us to our loved ones that are a better place than where we are now. I just want to share that. It's very important. And thank you for being interested in these things. I respect, too, that everyone here, it might be from different place and celebrate different. And I respect that. The important thing is that we never forget our loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, this is again the start of the conversation. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to working with you all to make this a great event in 2018. Thank you.